Hello everyone and welcome to my channel Y&R Trends. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. When Claire ultimately concluded she could no longer handle the burden of her secret, the tension in Genoa City reached an intolerable height. She had been battling for weeks under the weight of what she knew, the reality that might destroy lives, particularly Kyle's. The universe had other ideas. He had been strolling around believing he had the upper hand, that he could outwit her and control the situation to his advantage. Claire had been concealing something enormous that would both smash Kyle's heart and demolish his ego. "You betrayed me again, and now you'll know exactly what that betrayal cost you," she said, her voice shaking but as keen as steel, as she met Kyle's gaze that fateful day at society. Her words would reverberate throughout Kyle's life forever. As Kyle's bewildered countenance gradually transformed into one of horror and realization, the room fell silent and the sound of cutlery clinking faded into the background. He didn't know what Claire was going to tell him, but he had a gut feeling that it wasn't simply another disagreement, it was something profound. "What are you talking about, Claire?" he questioned, attempting to hide the panic that was starting to creep up his spine with a low growl. However, Claire's eyes gleamed with anguish and rage. She was not going to allow him to continue distorting the story. "You think you can act like the victim while lying, cheating, and controlling me?" she fired back. "Do you really believe that I was unaware of your meeting with Audra? About how you fed her all you know about me behind my back?" Kyle's mouth fell open. His face lost its color. He started to say, "That's not what happened," but Claire interrupted him with a cold look. Don't deceive me once more. You've already caused enough harm." When she said, "You wanted to ruin me, Kyle, but in the end you ruined yourself," her voice broke, revealing her vulnerability despite her best efforts to maintain her composure. The anguish in her voice was about love, trust, and the breakdown of something that may have been lovely rather than just betrayal. Kyle struggled to find his voice for a considerable amount of time. He simply stood there and gazed at her, reliving every decision he had made, every lie he had uttered, and every secret he had concealed. He muttered, "Claire, I didn't want to hurt you," but she laughed angrily, tears streaming down her face. "So why did you do that? Why did you use me as a pawn in your small conflict with your mom? In opposition to Summer? Against oneself?" Her remarks sliced through the thin veil of denial he had been hiding behind. Before he could reply, Claire inhaled deeply and revealed the shocking information. With a shaky voice she replied, "You think you know everything, Kyle, but you don't even know the biggest truth of all. You literally have no idea what I've been carrying." Kyle blinked, a look of bewilderment on his face. "What are you discussing?" softly he inquired. When Claire spoke again, her voice was hardly audible above a whisper, and her hand strayed to her stomach. "Kyle, I'm expecting. I was carrying your child." He was struck by the words like a goods train. Kyle staggered backward and reached for the table's edge for support. "What did you just say?" His throat constricted as he asked. Claire was crying uncontrollably now, but her rage was still blazing behind them. She shook her head and said, "You heard me. I had your child while I was pregnant. Indeed, it was yours before you even asked. However, I lost it the night you deceived me, so you'll never get to meet that baby." Kyle's knees gave way. As the truth of what she had spoken dawned on him, his breath came in short, harsh gasps. "No," he mumbled. "No, Claire, that's not how could—" he began, but she interrupted him. "Kyle, you broke me. You broke me in every possible way. I had faith in you. When you told me you loved me and that we were in this together, I trusted you. However, you were preoccupied with defending your own pride while I was attempting to keep us safe." Both of them were suffocated by the words that hung heavy in the air. For the first time in a long time, Kyle didn't bother to hide the tears that welled up in his eyes. As the enormity of what he had done overwhelmed him, he felt them fall hot and merciless. His voice broke as he said, "Claire, I didn't know. If I had known, I would have." She interrupted him once more, laughing harshly and nearly hysterically. "What would have happened if you had known? Would you have given up lying? Would you have developed a conscience all of a sudden? No, Kyle. You would have tried to control the situation and portray yourself as the hero, as you usually do. However, this story lacks heroes. Not you. Not me. Just suffering. Desperate to find some sort of forgiveness and to stop her crying, Kyle grabbed for her but she recoiled. She yelled, "Don't touch me. After what you've done, you don't get to console me. If you never wanted to be a mourning father in the first place, you don't get to play the role." His shoulders trembled as the weeping became more intense, and his head fell. He muttered, "I didn't mean for any of this to happen." Claire's eyes hardened as she said, "I thought I was protecting myself, my family, your relatives, or your ego?" Coldly, she asked, "Because from where I stand, all you've safeguarded is your capacity to ruin everyone who has ever loved you. With Summer you succeeded. You and I accomplished it together. And now you've done it to a baby who never had the opportunity to be born." Like glass fragments, the words tore through Kyle's chest. He wanted to yell, to punch something, to go back in time and reverse all the foolish self-centered choices that had brought them to this point. However, it was too late. The harm had already been done. He collapsed into a chair, sobbing furiously with his head in his hands. He repeatedly muttered, "I'm sorry." Claire said, "I'm so sorry," but she remained motionless. Only a chilly emptiness remained after her tears had dried. She stated bluntly, "Sorry doesn't bring my baby back. Sorry won't make up for the scared evenings I sobbed by myself while you were out having sex with someone else. Even though you promised not to betray me again. Saying sorry doesn't make up for the instant I realized you had." As she went on, her voice grew a little softer, almost if she was talking to herself. "Kyle, you were loved. I truly did, God help me. I believed that we would start over and be able to turn all the craziness into something genuine. However, you helped me realize something that I should have understood all along. Falsehoods are the foundation of nothing. It falls every time." With a pale, tear-streaked face, Kyle looked up. "Please, Claire," he pleaded. "Tell me I can accomplish anything at all. I'll make it right." Claire simply shook her head, saying, "I'll fix everything." "No, Kyle. Certain things are unfixable. There are some things you simply must deal with." Her tone was like a blade in its finality. Kyle was aware that he had permanently lost her. As she turned to go, she stopped at the door and gave it one more look. "What hurts the most, do you know?" Silently, she inquired. "Losing the baby is not the issue. It's realizing that even if the child had survived, their father would not have known how to love without ruining everything he came into contact with." She then left, leaving Kyle to deal with his guilt on his own. The ensuing hush was overwhelming. Glancing around the deserted restaurant, he saw the echoes of their hopes for a future that had vanished, the ghosts of their laughing. He was so overcome by the weight of his errors that he was having trouble breathing. In the hopes that she would hear him and turn around, he muttered her name. However, she didn't. A photo, a coffee mug, and a single earring she had left behind were among the relics of their love that surrounded Kyle as he sat on the floor of his apartment hours later. The tears returned as he traced her grin with his thumb while holding the picture in his palms. Her words repeated like a curse in his head. "You betrayed me again." He realized now that he would never be able to get away from it. For the remainder of his life, he would live with that shame. Claire, meantime, was by herself in Chancellor Park, gazing at the fountain while the wind blew through her hair. Strangely liberated, she felt empty. Even though it hurt more than she could handle, she felt she had regained her power after finally speaking the truth. Kyle had controlled the story for far too long, manipulating her feelings and taking advantage of her fears. But that is no longer the case. She left on her own terms this time. Nevertheless, a feeling of grief swept over her as she covered her stomach with a shaking palm. The story that would follow her forever included the baby she had lost, the love she had given, and the betrayal she had experienced. She did, however, find a glimmer of resolve despite the suffering. She would overcome this. She was going to reconstruct. When Kyle eventually saw her again, he would see that the woman he had ruined had grown stronger than he could have ever dreamed. "I lost everything," Kyle muttered into the silence as he returned to his flat. His reflection in the dark window appeared to be a stranger, a broken man tormented by his own lies. Both Kyle and Claire realized that their story wasn't finished as the night grew darker over Genoa City. However, all that followed would be etched in the ashes of their former selves. They had told the truth. The secret had been revealed. And nothing would ever be the same. The consequences of Claire's revelation continued to reverberate in Kyle's head for hours after she left society, like a nightmare he was unable to shake. The city's beautiful cityscape mocked him from behind the glass as he sat in his penthouse with the lights low. His phone kept buzzing, calls from Jack, texts from Summer, and even a couple from Audra, but he never picked up. He was unable to. Whenever he closed his eyes, all he saw was Claire's pale, shaking face and her broken voice as she uttered the words that had ruined him. "I was pregnant with your child." He tried to drive the vision away by pressing the heels of his fists into his eyes, but it only became more distinct. Her anguish, her rage, and her tears were etched in his memory like an unhealing wound. She had cried out, "You betrayed me again," and he knew she was correct. Despite all of his explanations and attempts to justify his choices, the unpleasant reality remained that he had deceived her. Once more. When the elder abbot used his key to gain in, Jack's voice finally broke the quiet. "Kyle," with a tense and anxious tone, he called. His look changed from bewilderment to anxiety as he noticed his son seated on the floor among shattered glass and half-empty bottles. What on earth took place here? Kyle didn't even raise his head. He whispered, "She told me the truth." Stepping cautiously over the mess, Jack scowled. "Claire." With a raspy voice, Kyle nodded slowly. "Dad, she was expecting. With my infant. And I had no idea." Jack's breath caught in his throat as he froze. "What did you just say?" At that moment, Kyle looked up, his eyes puffy and red. As soon as he uttered the words out, something inside of him broke. "She lost the baby because of me." Jack's stomach dropped. His head whirling, he slumped into the closest chair. He started, "Son," but Kyle interrupted him by pounding his fist against the table. "Don't. Tell me it's not my fault, please. Don't try to cheer me up. I'm to blame. All of it." Jack paused and carefully considered what to say. "Kyle, you have to stop torturing yourself like this. You were unaware of." He was cut off by Kyle's hard, broken laughter, which was almost like a sob. "I was unaware? No, I was unaware of her pregnancy. However, I was aware that I was causing her pain. I was lying and I knew it. She was giving me everything, but I knew I was playing games. And I still did it." He got to his feet and paced like an animal in a cage. "You once warned me that my decisions will catch up with me. Guess what, Dad? They did. Additionally, they took something benign with them this time." Seeing his son in this condition broke Jack's heart. He had witnessed many of Kyle's blunders in the past, but this one was unique. This was not obstinacy or conceit. This was heartbreaking, unadulterated guilt. "Kyle, you need to talk to someone," he whispered. "Perhaps Claire, perhaps a therapist." With a hollow voice, Kyle declared, "Claire is gone." With unfocused eyes, he ran a hand through his hair and said, "She made it clear she never wants to see me again." "If I had known, I would have tried to control everything," she remarked. "She is correct too. I would have. I take control, manipulate, and fix things until they are utterly wrecked because that is what I do." For once, Jack wanted to fight with him and tell him that he was being too hard on himself, but he was at a loss for words. Kyle was correct. His pride, his need to be correct, and his incapacity to let go were some of Jack's worst qualities that he had inherited and intensified. Now the one thing he didn't even know he wanted, a family with Claire, had been lost due to that same need. Claire, meantime, was in her own dimly lit room across town. She had moved into a tiny suite at the Grand Phoenix following her departure from society. She hadn't called anyone or gone home. She couldn't stand to talk to anyone yet, even though her phone had been ringing constantly with missed calls from Nikki and Victoria. Pulling her knees up to her chest, she sat at the window and watched the rain trickle down the glass. The astonishment, the regret, the anguish in Kyle's expression when she told him were all repeatedly replayed in her mind. She had nearly felt sorry for him for a split second, but then she recalled the heartache, loneliness, and terror of losing her child while he was out scheming to harm her. Raw and merciless, the pain flooded back. Even still, a small part of her missed him despite her rage. Not the cunning, self-centered Kyle who had deceived her, but the guy he had been in the quiet times, the one who had held her after nightmares, made her laugh when she was too depressed to grin, and whispered that she was the greatest thing that had ever happened to him. However, she was no longer able to focus on that aspect of him. The instant that man chose dishonesty over love, he was dead. Whispers were rife throughout Genoa City the following morning. In small town, news spread quickly, and for some reason the story had already started to leak. People were turning by the time Kyle entered Jabot headquarters later that day. He could sense the weight of their gazes, the curiosity, the sympathy, the condemnation. Summer raced into his office, her eyes blazing, just as he was about to get there. "Is that accurate?" She slammed the door behind her and demanded. Kyle didn't even try to seem as though he didn't understand her. "Yes," he muttered. Summer's mouth fell open. "Claire Newman became pregnant because of you." He flinched. "It wasn't meant to occur," she said. "Oh, for God's sake, Kyle. Do you believe it's preferable to mention that? Are you aware of what you've done? Your life has just blown up. Once more." His tolerance was already thin as he turned to face her. "You don't believe I am aware of that?" Summer shook her head, her voice shaking with incredulity and rage. "Kyle, I felt like we were finally making progress. I believed that we could be polite, co-parent, and perhaps even become friends once more. However, you simply cannot stop causing chaos, do you? You are unable to cease causing harm to others." Kyle didn't dispute her harsh remarks. He was aware that she was correct. "Summer, I didn't mean for any of this to happen," he replied in a broken voice. "I cherished her. I did, in fact." Summer's expression hardened as she crossed her arms. "You cherished her? You ruined her. She appeared to be a ghost when I saw her earlier. She was broken by everything you did and said to her. And now everyone in this town will be aware of your actions." Shame washed over him as he closed his eyes. He said, "She lost the baby." Summer's expression changed from one of rage to one of shock. "Oh my God," she muttered. "Kyle, He gave a head shake. Don't feel sorry for me. I'm not worthy of it." Summer let out a trembling breath. Despite their past and the lingering animosity between them, she couldn't help but experience a glimmer of empathy. She whispered, "You need help, before this totally destroys you." However, Kyle simply laughed, that same eerie hollow chuckle that made her shudder. "It has already done so." Victoria was in a frenzy at Newman Enterprises across town. Victoria's heart broke as her daughter's shaky voice revealed everything when she had finally managed to get Claire on the phone. "Oh, my dear," she replied, her eyes welling with sorrow. "Why didn't you inform me?" Claire said, "I couldn't. I wanted no one to know. Kyle and I were meant to keep it a secret, but after he betrayed me, everything went apart." Anger swelling in her breast, Victoria clenched her jaw. She stated icily, "He'll pay for this. No one can harm my daughter and get away with it." Claire blurted out, "Don't. Please, Mom. No more retaliation is what I desire. All I desire is serenity." However, Victoria was unable to let it go. She had already lost too much, and witnessing her daughter's suffering rekindled all of her protective instincts. She met Jack in person at the Abbott mansion in a matter of hours. Kyle squinted his eyes. "Kane." "That's right," Jack remarked somberly. "And Phyllis. She will regret getting involved with this." Kane was performing his own damage control across town. When Lily first saw him at society, her face was taut with annoyance. "Kane, this is unbelievable. You claim to have locked down that system." "I did," he was adamant. "However, someone violated it. Victor Newman is now turning it into a weapon. Lily, I promise to make this right. Even if it's Phyllis, I'll track down whoever assisted him." Lily crossed her arms. Kane exercised caution. "You're experimenting with flames." He gave a sinister grin. "Well, perhaps it's time to burn them all." Phyllis unexpectedly received an encrypted message back at the Grand Phoenix. "We are aware of what you sold." Her heartbeat quickened. "You can't hide forever." It was not Victor or Kane who sent that message. There was another person observing. Someone risky. In the meantime, Sharon was sitting next to Noah's bed in the hospital, whispering to her unconscious son, "Baby, come back to me." Nick stood in the corner, his eyes red from sleep deprivation, his jaw clenched. "Please." Detective Halpern entered through the creaking door. "Mr. and Mrs. Newman, we discovered fresh security footage from the accident night," he continued, wiping his mouth. "It may alter everything." Sharon stood up tall. What sort of video? Halpern paused. It depicts someone tampering with Noah's vehicle prior to the collision. Nick clenched his hands. Who? Halpern answered. We're still analyzing it, but the figure looks familiar. Sharon's phone buzzed before they could press him any harder. He's not the only one who ought to have perished that evening. A text message from an unidentified number appeared on the screen. Sharon felt her blood chill. Half expecting to see Matt Clark hiding in the shadows once more, she glanced around the room.